Hey guys, the Jace man is back with another episode of Jace Love Strength. In this episode, I've got something for you. I am currently watching Strongman, the Brian Shaw story. So it's a four-part documentary, and I'm going to review each part. And I figure I'll make a trailer for each one and encourage you guys to go out to Amazon Prime and watch it yourself. I figure this is only good since I one time did an unofficial documentary for him right here on this channel. And so I thought I would watch this and comment on it. And we'll get started by letting you guys watch the trailer that I made, using clips from the show, and then I'll come back and tell you a little bit about the documentary, the first part anyway. Some things that I learned, some things that I kind of want to comment on, and some parting words to send you off to check it out. So without further ado, let's go ahead and watch this thing.
Hey, look, I'm not all right with this. It is time to start prepping for World's Strongest Man in 2000.
Drive for Five has been going for quite a few years.
So then he says, well, I'm gonna kick it up a notch. I'm gonna go to a bigger contest in St. Louis. 16 guys. He finished in 13th place. He walks over to us and the first thing he says is, I've got some work to do.
Thanks, Kaz. Appreciate it.
Not making the final in 2008 really drove me going into 2009. You know, am I going to get third? Am I going to get fourth? Who's going to win?
Is a mighty, mighty man and finishes.
Executed well, secured that third place, so my first podium at World's Strongest Man. I'm now standing on the podium with Zydrunas Savickas, Mariusz Pudzianowski, and now me, Brian Shaw, in third place. And I'm just telling myself, look, just got to get this thing loaded and you have to get your hands off. They won't stop the time until you get your hands off.
Oh my.
It ended up costing me first place in that event. So I would have finished in first. Instead, I finished in third.
Stops the clock at 27.11, but Zydrunas Savickas is right behind him. Zydrunas Savickas is your 2010 World's Strongest.
Came down to those 2 points that I had lost in the opening loading race. If I would have won that event, I would have won the entire contest. And I remember standing on the podium, getting my second place trophy. Got on the airplane to head home. Just a lot of internal thinking. 2 words popped into my head: be great.
All right, so there we have the trailer for Strongman, the Brian Shaw story. Part 1, Be Great. All right, so what do I have to say about this? Well, I think one of the things I want to point out is it just refreshed some of the things I already knew. So Brian made his World's Strongest Man debut in 2008, failed to make the final there. 2009, he comes back and does make the final and actually makes the podium with a third place finish. Comes back in 2010 and gets a second place finish. Now, what's interesting about that is he talks about it a little bit there. I want to talk a little bit more about it here, though. In 2010, it's the first time, and I believe still the only time in history, where you had a tie. So Zydrunas and Brian actually finished the entire show with the same amount of points. And so we had a count back type system. And the way it went is they said, well, which of the two guys had the most first place finishes? As it turned out, they each had 2.5 first place finishes. They each won 2 events, and then they shared a victory on another event. So they each had 2.5 there. So then it went to the second place. Zydrunas had a second. Brian had no seconds. Brian had a third place. So Zydrunas won the 2010 World's Strongest Man because he had 2.5 wins and a second place. Brian had 2.5 wins, and then the next best position was third place. Now, what's interesting about that is something that I had forgotten. And it's kind of a shoulda, coulda, woulda thing. I'm not trying to take anything away from Zydrunas when I go back and relive history here. But what's interesting is in the first event, Brian would have won it, but his bag fell off the podium, which meant that he had to pick it back up and reload it. By the time he did that, he still turned in a good time and still finished ahead of Zydrunas in that event, but it was only good for third place. Whereas if it would have stayed on the platform and not fallen off into the water, he would have won that event, which would have meant that he would have, instead of finishing third in that event, he would have finished in first. So that would have given him 2 more points. You extrapolate that over the rest of the contest, and then there would have been no tie. Brian Shaw would have won the 2010 World's Strongest Man. Even if there had been a tie in points, Bryan would have won because he would have had more first place finishes. But because he would have gotten more points there, the tie would have been irrelevant because Bryan would have actually just won it outright. Now, that could have happened. Shoulda, coulda, woulda. Again, the bag was on the platform, the bag fell in the water. Those are the rules. He had to reload it. Can't take that away from Zydrunas. But what it does make me wonder is a question that I'm going to pose to you now, and I want you guys to put your thoughts in the comments below. And that is this: we know that Mariusz Pudzianowski is the only 5-time winner of World's Strongest Man, and for some reason he's criminally underrated by strongman fans, myself included. And I talk about this all the time, that we need to give that man more credit. But he's the only man to win 5 World's Strongest Men titles. Then we talk about who is the GOAT. Most people say that Zydrunas Savickas is the GOAT. There are people who give other answers. A lot of people think that Brian Shaw is the GOAT, and he's probably the second most named athlete after Zydrunas. I think Zydrunas has the largest share of the pie, and then Brian Shaw probably has the second most share of the pie. But here's my question to you. If that bag had not fallen off into the water in 2010, and Brian had won that would have been his first World's Strongest Man title, which would have meant that he would have went on to win in 11, and then he would have kept winning and kept winning and kept winning until he got his final title in 2016. If Brian had won in 2010, that would have meant that throughout the course of his career, he would have wound up being a 5-time World's Strongest Man winner, joining Mariusz Pudzianowski. If you take that title away from Zydrunas in 2010, he would have only had 3 World's Strongest Man. Now, we don't get to live in revisionist history. Again, I'm not trying to take anything away from Zydrunas. I'm just asking you guys for your thoughts here. If, not it did, shoulda, coulda, woulda, if that bag had stayed on the platform, if Brian Shaw had won the World's Strongest Man in 2010 and went on to become a 5-time World's Strongest Man, thereby leaving Zydrunas Savickas with 3 World's Strongest Man titles, would it change your view of these two in history? Would it change their legacies for you? For those of you who say Zydrunas Savickas is the greatest strongman of all time, he is the GOAT. If he had only finished with 3 WSM titles to Shaw's 5, would you then still say Zydrunas is the best? He is the GOAT? Or would that make you go, no, maybe it's Shaw? I'm not giving you the answer here. I'm asking you to tell me what you think. It makes me think about the question. Again, my favorite strongman of all time is neither of the two. It's Big Bill Kazmaier. And part of me thinks that he is the greatest strongman of all time. Not because he's lifted more, people have gone and done things that he hasn't done. Not because he has the most titles, he doesn't, he only has 3. But it's because he was so far ahead of his time, and he beat people by so much. I think that greatness does great things, and I think that if you pick Bill Kazmaier up and you put him in today's lineup, I think that he rises to the competition, and he does Bill Kazmaier type things. Not with the same numbers that he had before, but much better numbers, because athletes chase each other, they push each other, and you only go as far as you have to go in some degrees, and he left everybody behind. But I don't, even though I think Kaz is my favorite, and I sometimes say, yeah, I think he may be the greatest strongman of all time. When people ask me who the GOAT is, even though Bill is the soft side here, I actually think it's Big Z is probably the GOAT. But man, I can make arguments for some other guys, including Bill. However, if we went back and we gave Brian Shaw that 5th title in 2010, which would have been his first title, but he would go on to win 4 more, I then might look at the body of work between Brian Shaw and Zydrunas Savickas, and I might rethink things. I'm not sure, because it's not like Big Z only has WSM titles. He competed for a really long time, and he was very successful at everything, and he has an amazing winning percentage. So maybe when you add everything up, I'd still say no, Big Z topples him. Congratulations, Shaw had an amazing career with 5 victories. But just because I think that I might say that, I also think that the fairness is I might not say that. It might make me reconsider. Am I the only one? Can we step outside of our box and even ask these types of questions to us? I don't know, but I am kind of curious what you would say. And then I'll leave you with this. Part 1 of the documentary was very, very good. I would encourage you guys to go watch it if you haven't seen it yet. And I would also encourage you to come back here again tomorrow, because at that point, you'll get to see me review Strongman, the Brian Shaw story, part 2. I'll see you guys then.